This incident occurred with us in 2007. I am a government employee, and at that time I was provided a house in the staff quarters by the office. Before that, I used to live in a rented house with my family. My family includes my wife, my mother, and a younger sister who was studying in college at that time. We were very happy because of getting a house, and my family was thrilled. Within a few days, we all shifted to that house. My wife had a keen interest in flowers, and she had created a small flower bed in the courtyard of the house, planting various flowers. She took good care of the plants, but one by one, they all withered and died. Despite trying different plants, they all ended up dead one day. One day, when my sister was removing those plants, she noticed a red cloth in the flower bed buried in the ground. When my sister tried to pull it out, it kept resisting and eventually came out. Upon opening it, she found it filled with dark soil, and there were some talismans tied to it with a thread. We couldn't understand how those talismans ended up in our house and who placed them there. Then, my mother told me to put those talismans back into the cloth and immerse them in the river. Since it was evening, I decided to store the talismans and the cloth in the storeroom for the night, and planned to dispose of them in the river the next day on my way to the office. While we were having dinner at night, we heard the sound of something breaking in the storeroom. Upon checking, we found that a mirror had fallen and shattered, and the red cloth with the talismans was also on the floor. I thought it might be the work of a cat, as cats often entered the storeroom. I picked everything up again, secured it, closed the storeroom, and returned. Then, around 1 a.m., while we were all asleep in our respective rooms, we started hearing the sound of anklets outside in the courtyard, as if someone wearing anklets was walking around slowly. The sound gradually grew louder and closer. We all came out of our rooms, went to the courtyard, and saw a large black cat sitting right where the talismans had been found earlier. The cat then began to cry in a strange manner. We were frightened, and my mother quickly ushered us back into the rooms. The cat continued crying persistently, and suddenly, it started crying in a girl's voice and then began laughing. The lights in the courtyard started flickering. The night became increasingly eerie with sounds of stones falling and the bed being pulled. It was a harrowing night filled with fear. We were in a terrible state, and in our anxiety we began reciting. Afterward, when morning approached, I went to the storeroom to retrieve the talismans, but neither the talismans nor the cloth was there. I started feeling even more tense, thinking that moving into this house was a big mistake. Then, I heard my wife's screams, and rushing to her room, I was shocked by what I saw. My sister was sitting with all her hair falling forward, laughing hysterically. Her voice had changed, and she held the same talismans in her hands, having opened them. Strange incantations were written on those talismans. When my sister saw me, she began to cry and then, amidst tears, burst into laughter again. On sister's face, there was the same dark soil that had come with the talismans. The situation had gotten out of our control. Sister's condition had deteriorated significantly. She seemed to be under the influence of some malevolent force, cutting herself with her own nails. Blood was flowing, and she was bizarrely reveling in it. Witnessing this, my wife fainted out of fear. My mother started crying, and I began reciting verses from the Quran. As the recitation began, my sister started screaming intensely, as if the entity affecting her was experiencing distress. After some time, her condition normalized. Still feeling quite frightened and disturbed, the doorbell suddenly rang. When I went outside, some people from the neighborhood were there, expressing concern. When I shared the whole incident with them, one person mentioned that his grandfather had told them that around 100 years ago, this place used to be a jungle, and there was a witch who lived there. She would kill people at night and perform rituals to worship demons using her incantations. Once people learned about the witch, they joined forces, caught her, and burned her alive. They collected her ashes and incantations, binding them in a red cloth. Then, they buried it somewhere to ensure that the witch remained forever confined. After learning this, I quickly wrapped those talismans and ashes in the same cloth and immersed them in the river. We promptly left that house, and to this day we can never forget this incident.